The first principle is that we have to work within the worldviews, identities, and moral values of the people that we are trying to reach. The most important thing that I will say to you today is that people are not looking for information. They are looking for affirmation. We want to be affirmed for who we are, for what is important to us, and for the choices that we have made. And all of those manifest themselves through our worldviews, identities, and moral values. Worldviews are sort of the collection of stories and expectations that we have of the world around us. They guide how we think that the world should work, and they exist along a continuum. And what's important about worldviews is that they help us to understand where people might perceive a threat. So you're hearing this around people's fear of institutions and government. That's a very specific worldview that has that high level of skepticism. Identities are the groups we see ourselves belonging to. We self-select them. And people within identity groups tend to share beliefs and norms. So my identity group may include academic, it may include mother, it may include sister, it may include occasionally Floridian. All of these are specific identity groups. What's important to understand about people's identities as we begin to understand them is that we are really hesitant to engage in a behavior that separates us from the groups with whom we identify. And then we have moral values. Our moral values are our deeply ingrained sense of right and wrong. And while we might hope and believe that these are universal and that others share our sense of right and wrong, they don't. They have very different perceptions of what is right and what is wrong. And in fact, we could waste a lot of time and effort trying to convince somebody that something is wrong or right, that they will never agree is wrong or right. What's important about moral values, identities, and worldviews is that we do not interrogate them. We don't change them. And so if you are trying to get somebody to shift a moral value or their identity, you're not going to be very successful. We have to affirm people for how they see themselves and how they see the world if we are going to reach them on incredibly sensitive issues like this one. If you look at moral values broken down by, you can break them down by conservative and liberal values. And one of the things that you start to notice very quickly is that a lot of the language that we might instinctively go to encourage people to get the vaccine is very strongly associated with a liberal value. So if you're not talking with somebody who shares those liberal values, using a message around protection from harm isn't going to work. And so you may be wanting to go to messages that are much more focused on loyalty to their in-group. And that sort of respect for tradition and hierarchy and responsibility. Our recommendations are to really examine and listen for the worldviews, identities, and moral values of the people that you're trying to reach, and talk about the vaccines in the context of what's important to them, not what's important to you. And as you apply the other principles in this guide, really start with that understanding of worldviews, identities, and moral values. And as you think about your call to action, make sure that you're building something that resonates with the moral values of the people that you're trying to reach. So a call to action that is simply to get the vaccine is probably not going to inspire anybody. And different calls to action, you're going to need different calls to action to reach different people and inspire them to shift their perspective. Anything I need to be hearing about from the chat, Ben?
Principle number one, we developed a 2-page fact sheet for nursing home staff and family, which emphasized that getting the vaccine helped us get back to normal faster. Means we can hug loved ones sooner.
Oh, I love that. It's such a great appeal. That power of nostalgia, that power of doing the things that are most important to us. Thanks for sharing that.